change this up a little bit. So, we gotta make sure we put this on here right. Let's see here. All right, so I think the next thing we really need to do is we need to turn this into its own component. And that's this next step right here. So what has happened on this next step is this thing that you change a body to a component. All right? That's all it is. So on mine right here, this new one, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to where we have the bodies, and I'm going to open up bodies on my browser. So go to bodies, and you'll see body 1. We only have one body on here. It's the 8-shooter, right? All right. Are we there yet? Yes? Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to right-click on body 1. All right, my options open up when I right-click on it. I'm going to go down to the third item. It says, create components from bodies. So what I'm telling the computer to do is take this body that we have on this one image, and we're now going to go ahead and just call it its own component. So go down to create components from bodies, and it's going to ask me questions about this. All right? I'm going to go ahead and rename it. So you can see down below, I now have a new thing. It says component 1. And I want to rename this thing. So if you double click with kind of a space in between the clicks, I know it's kind of weird, you can change the name here. And we're going to keep it simple. We're going to make sure it's the same. It's going to be called cylinder base. And I type it right there in that hole. I'm just renaming it. I'm just saying what its name is. It's called a cylinder base. Once you have cylinder base typed in, then you can hit enter and be done with it. The symbol for new component is right next to it now. Instead of a cylinder shape, it's now a cube shape. And that cube shape is for component, as opposed to cylinder, which is for bodies. And now if I open up the cylinder, you can see that it has its own body inside that one component. All right. Now, when I go to build on top of this thing, and we're using the base to model our gasket, which is the next part, when I go to use this, I don't want the bottom to move around, because they're going to be connected together. And I need one part to just kind of stay still. And I don't want anything in the environment to move while I'm working on top of it. Of course, I can change my angle. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you're modeling, let's just say if you wanted to sketch, and you wanted to trace over the top of something with a pencil, you want the thing that you're tracing to stay still. So we anchor it down. On here, it's called ground. So I'm going to go up to cylinder base. Then I'm going to right-click on it. All right? The second item down says ground. And when I click on that, you can see a little red pin is now on my little white cube next to cylinder base. That red pin, that pin says, we're holding this thing still. It is grounded. It can't move. And as you can tell, they kind of changed the color of it a little bit. Instead of dark blue, it becomes light blue whenever you have it selected. And that was the way that was. That's not a big deal. All right, how we doing? We're ready to make the gasket?
Hey, Mr. Wynn?
Yep.
My mom just texted me. Can you go over that last step again?
Just the ground part?
Yeah, the part where you grounded it.
Yeah, right-click on cylinder base. Go down the second item, it says ground, and then click on that, and that's it.
Okay, thanks.
And if I ever wanted to unground it, I do the same thing and just click on unground instead of ground. But since we're gonna build on it the whole way, I don't want the bottom piece to move. All right, it's an assembly feature. Has nothing to do with your sketches. You'll be able to move the screen because I can still move the screen. Okay, we're ready to make the gasket, right? The easiest part of all. This thing is ridiculously easy because it's just a sketch. And of course, you want your gasket to always match the surface that it is going to seal, which is going to be the top face of our cylinder base. So if you go back to my other drawing here, the next item after the ground is going to be building the gasket. So here's what we're going to do. Don't do a new sketch yet. If you started a new sketch, go ahead and delete that step. What we need to do is we need to do this thing up here for a new component. So under assemble at the top of the screen, this is the new thing that we do here that we didn't do in the other one. When you're building an assembly, everything needs to be a separate separate component. So start off with a new component, and that option is under assemble. So go up to assemble, and then you're going down to new component. All right, and really what it wants here, it wants a name. So over here in the new component box, we're going to put in the new name, which is gasket. It's probably really small on your screen if you're looking at it from mine. But all I did was where it says name in the new component box, I typed in gasket. It automatically knows what body you want to use. So we're good with that. From the parent body, the shape down below. All right. So once I have my name in there of gasket, I can pretty much just go ahead and say okay. I don't need anything else. Now, notice what it did. It made the cylinder base kind of translucent, where you can see straight through it. Because now you're dealing with a new component and you want to build on that component. All right? So the next thing obviously now is to make that sketch. And I have some features that I need to make sure I have. We have all those things already done for us. And if you'll notice on my model right there, notice they're all in purple. What does that mean that I used? If all the objects on my sketch are in purple, what does it mean I used? Yes, indeed, it is project. So that's exactly what we're going to do. The great thing about this program is you don't have to redraw every single thing. So I'm ready to go ahead and put my new sketch on. I create a sketch. It's going to ask me, where do you want this thing? I want it on the plane of this surface here. Okay? So remember, you don't want to go ahead and choose anything other than a surface. Now, if I chose down here these planes, I'd have these other planes to choose from. The one I want, though, is the one up here, where the red and green line go right through the center of the imaginary location of this cylinder top. So click on the top of the old body. It will recognize it. My sketch is going on there. Might as well. And now it's time for that project thing. So I started my sketch on top of the cylinder. create, down to project. It's going to ask me now, what do you want to project? Okay. And if you click on this, each individual, you could do this, right? I just click on the face, this thing right here. And it will pretty much save all my geometry for me. So I only did one spot. I clicked on the face of the cylinder base, and it recognized all the parts down below that were on the cylinder base. All the circles, the whole circles, everything. Makes it kind of fast. Once you have it projected, you're ready to extrude. This thing's not that bad. All right. So I'll go back and we're ready for extrusion. And the details of this is how big our gasket is. Our gasket is 3 millimeters thick. Make sure that you are working in the gasket area, which it should be. So under here, when I go to extrude, E to extrude, select the top of the face, type in 3. I'm on gasket. Gasket is highlighted on the left over here. So that's the body I'm working off of. We want to make sure that that's lit up. And that's all you got to do. A 3 millimeter thick gasket. And hit OK. It will place that gasket on top of the cylinder base. All right, we doing okay with this? Anybody need to catch up? We're trying to go slow today, in case you haven't figured it out. All right, we're done with that part now. Making it, that is. So once we're done, we need to go ahead on to the next part, which is we need to go ahead and make the next one. You know, I'm thinking at this time, though, we could go ahead and include that joint there. It's not totally necessary, but if you wanted to go ahead and put your joint in right now, it's the same as before, the joint command at the top. You turn the actual gasket and the base on. I'm going to recommend against it right now, but theoretically you could do those things there. But what we do need to do now is we finish the gasket. It's a steel gasket. Gaskets would not be made of steel, by the way. They have to be somewhat flexible, malleable. We're going to go ahead and start a new component. This is going to be the cap. Same process as before. Go up to assemble. Click down on new component, because we want a new component to be based on. And you can see by default, it wants to choose the gasket, the last thing we did, to base it on, and that is perfect. That's what we want. It needs a name. And the name we're going to call this one is cover plate. Am I changed? Come on. There it goes. Cover plate. And you could type it directly into, whoop. That didn't work out so good. New component, come on. There it goes. Cover plate. got that done? Our new component. All right, same process as before. We're gonna go ahead and make a sketch. And now we know what we need to, where we need to sketch this thing at. We're gonna be doing the cover plate based off of the gasket, the one that's right underneath it. So, let's go to our model. Look at that, big surprise. Same project process as before. It's the exact same sketch actually, as what was done before. So we need to practice that one more time so we get really good at it. So we're ready to start a new sketch. We're gonna choose the top of the gasket. And on top of that gasket, we're gonna go ahead and project the geometry from underneath it. And like I said, I like to click on the whole face, it turns blue, and then that will select everything within that blue, which is all the parts that I need in order to project or to extrude this thing. So we are currently working on cover plate. We've projected. Anybody not with me at this point? Tim, how are we doing with this? Are you where I am?